Welcome back, junkies. This is the Daily Wealth Junkie Show. Today, we've got a pretty unique guest here for you today. But before we get started in that, be sure to subscribe and rate and comment on our podcast on iTunes or wherever you're listening to, and to join us on Facebook. And at the end, I'll give you the link to the Facebook group. But before we go any further, Will, why don't you introduce us to our unique guest today?
Yeah, thanks so much, Brandon. So we have a very exciting show today. We have Maxwell Ivey on here, and a quick bio. He is blind and grew up in a family of carnival owners. After his father passed away at an early age, he left that business and started helping people sell their amusement equipment because it's all he knew. And to promote this venture, he started blogging, and many people started telling him that he has an amazing story and a greater purpose. So that's what got him into what he is doing today. He's now a coach and a speaker. He's been on over 200 podcasts since he started, and he has had an amazing journey inspiring others. So with that, Maxwell, why don't you give the listeners a little bit about your background and what got you to where you are today?
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on the show, and thanks for the intro. And thanks for basically forcing me to do something that I told you beforehand I'm not yet comfortable with, and that is the idea that I've been on 200 podcasts. So thank you.
Well, I figured if I'm saying it, you're not forced to.
There you go. Exactly. And I tell people all the time, there's an amazing value in a great intro. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And yes, I started off in a family of carnival owners. I have boxed popcorn. I've helped set up and take down rides. I've had grease all over me at one time or another. And primarily what I did when we had the carnival was I did the bookings. I would make the cold calls and try to get people to hire our carnival over a bunch of other carnivals. And at that time, we had 7 or 8 rides. Most of the time, our competitors usually had 12 or 15 or more rides. So I got told no quite a lot. And that's actually turned out to be a great skill for me as I've gotten older and gone into other business. So I did the bookings until my dad died. I started a website called midwaymarketplace.com, which I still use and still help people sell rides. Little did I know exactly what I was getting myself into when I started an online business in 2007. That was pre-Wi-Fi, pre-WordPress, and pre-social media. So things was a lot harder back then. And as a blind person, I had to learn so many things, including how to hand code HTML, because I couldn't use the what you see is what you get form that most other people were using. Recruiting clients, setting fees, writing ad copy, managing the photos and videos people would send to me, recording my own videos, building email lists, using social media. And people were just like, Max, you just basically take on whatever that next challenge is in front of you. So you inspire us. We want to hear more about you. And that led to a second website called theblindblogger.net. The name comes from the fact that most people did not know there were blind people blogging or podcasting. They thought I was the only one out here, so they just referred to me as the blind blogger, and when I wanted a website, that just happened to stick. And thankfully, it's become my brand, and I'm very happy I was smart enough not to try to come up with something better. From there, I've written 3 books. I'm working on my 4th. My editor will tell you I'm not working hard enough, but I'm getting there. I've done over 200 podcast interviews, as you mentioned. I have traveled the country solo. I've sang in public, done public speaking. I also help people get on podcasts and radio shows, and I'm also a coach. Although recently I had to understand that the kind of coach that I was wanting to be is not the coach people need me to be. So I'm working on being a coach to teach people how to ask for what they want and need and how to get it. So that's kind of the longer version of how I got here. Thankfully, I've had a lot of people along the way who have helped me, other bloggers and podcasters, people who reached out and said, Max, there's much more inside you than just selling carnival and amusement park rides. I've had a lot of people encourage me when I thought about quitting, which most of us who do this, we don't get up every day, sure, we're going to do it again, but thankfully, I've got a good circle of friends online and off, and I continue to just get up and show up and do the next thing in front of me. And for some reason, thankfully, that inspires others.
Wow, that's awesome. So, Max, let me ask you this. Have you been blind your whole life, or was there a time in your life that something changed or
Right. Well, when I was a kid, up until 4 or 5 years old, I had perfect vision. They noticed I was running into things and falling down more than the other kids, so I went to a bunch of eye doctors, and they finally found out I have something called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP. It's probably the most common of all the eye diseases. It's degenerative and hereditary. So my vision slowly degenerated until I was in junior high school, when I lost quite a bit of vision, and it stayed constant until I went off to college. And then by the time I graduated from college, it was what it is now, which is light perception. But I find it simpler for most people just to say that I'm totally blind, because I have no functional vision.
Wow.
And I'm sure that's got to be a huge, what's the right word for it? How do you stay motivated and keep moving forward with that?
Right. Well, one of the things that the fact that my vision initially went gradually actually taught me some things that have really been helpful as I've gotten older, because in the, let's say, the first 13, 14 years of my life, I went from reading normal print books to large print books, to using a closed circuit monitor that would enlarge the text and put it up on a screen, to then listening to audio and learning to read Braille. So I've had lots of experiences early in my life where I had to continually adapt to changing circumstances and ability. And as you guys probably know, as you get older, that sort of mindset and experience really comes in handy with just about anything you're doing, because nothing stays the same. Even, regardless of what business you may be in, you may think you know it all today, but tomorrow, next week, next month, you may have to totally relearn how you run your business. And so I've got years of experience having to adapt to continuous change.
Yeah, that's really good. They say that there's a saying where for the entrepreneur, for the business owner, only the paranoid survive, because everything is constantly adapting, and just being a chameleon is kind of necessary. And it sounds like that's what you've done. So I kind of want to unpack your story a little bit. So in 2003, you mentioned that your father passed away, and after that happened, did you take over the family business? Just kind of give us the timeline after that.
Right. Well, me and my youngest brother, Patrick, we did take over the business, and we did try to run the business for 2 or 3 years. Like most businesses, it is very difficult to be a small company in any field. We had 6 or 7 rides. We may have had 2 rides that would have been considered adult rides. We were trying to move everything without having to have a semi truck, because with a semi truck comes lots of additional regulations and expense, and we just didn't have anybody that we knew could drive that particular truck. So we're trying to move everything with 1-ton vehicles, trying to load things in box trucks on 5th-wheel trailers. So it wasn't easy. After, let's see, 9/11 was in 2001. So in 2003, 2004, there was a massive increase in everybody's insurance rates. And in the carnival business, it was even worse than other places. So eventually it just got to the point where we couldn't stay in business. So at first we combined our rides with my uncle's carnival, and he actually is still in business, and his grandkids are operating a show that moves from Corpus Christi all the way to Nebraska and back every year. Wow. They're moving about 25, 30 rides. Their midway is probably worth between $2 and $5 million. The most our equipment would have ever been worth might have been $75,000 or $100,000. So we were very small time compared to his show even back then. So we combined with his show, and then eventually I just didn't enjoy being on his midway. The kids' games that I took with me when we joined up with him were not making money. So I went home full time and put all my efforts into building my new business. My mom and my brother stayed with my uncle for a couple more years and operated a food trailer, mostly on the weekends, but sometimes they'd be away for a few weeks at a time. So for a couple years there, it was me and, my late crazy dog Penny. And I was spending, 12, 14, 16 hours a day coding HTML and, sending spam, asking people if they put their stuff on my website, and cold calling people, all that sort of stuff you do when you're trying to build a new business. And it's like, It's like you against the world, and you're willing to do whatever you have to do in order to grow your business.
Yeah. So Maxwell, talk about a little bit you said you had the code, and I mean, obviously without sight and to be able to do all that, talk about the limitations and how you kind of got over those, limitations and excuses by, pretty much.
Here's what I did. Here's what I did. Here's what I did. And this is the most important thing I'm going to teach. One of the most important things I'm going to teach people in this interview is I was not afraid to look stupid or make mistakes. So what I would do is I would code the website to my best ability. Then I would post it to Facebook, because Facebook had started to come along. And I would say, how does it look? Did I do okay? And I had the hardest time with adding photos to pages. I would almost always, it would take me 2 or 3 times before those blank yellow or blank black squares would go away and the image would show up. But people were very helpful. They were very supportive. I would get more responses to the process of posting a new ride than I would when I posted the ride, asking people if they knew anybody that wanted to buy it. Because I wasn't afraid of looking stupid. It wasn't, I was like, okay, I'm just going to put it out there. If it looks good, fine. If it doesn't, somebody will tell me, and then I'll change it. And if I have to change it 3 or 4 or 6 times to get it working, then that's the way I'll do it. And I should mention that my first effort at building my own website, I started with the W3C.org school, and I went through their tutorials one thing at a time. I created the homepage, and then I created the links, and I created an email link. And I figured out how to embed photos following their instructions. My biggest mistake was when I chose the colors for the website, because you have 2 choices in HTML. You can either use what's called the hexadecimal number for color, or you can use the color name. And I felt like, well, I'm blind. I don't know what numbers go with what colors, but I do know what names go with what colors. So I chose yellow for the background. I chose blue for the text, red for the link text, and orange for previously clicked links. I would later find out that the yellow was ice cream and yellow, the blue was navy, the red was brick, and the orange was fluorescent, like off the side of a honky-tonk.
Oh, wow.
That's hilarious.
Yes, it was very bright and very vivid. Plus, sometimes I'd have 2 or 3 different size images on the screen because I didn't have a way to edit the sizes. So I would just put them up there. Whatever people sent me, that was what I was going to use. I was told more than once that Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have had an argument over this thing. It was so bright. It was vivid. It was vivid. But what did I do? Did I focus on the fact that my website was junk, or did I focus on helping people sell rides? And I decided, well, the website's as good as I can make it. I don't have the money to hire somebody to make it better. I don't have the trust to hire somebody to make it better. I'm just going to focus on selling rides. So I did that. I sent emails, I posted on social media, I made phone calls. And unlike a lot of people who have good websites but don't post their first blog article or their first podcast episode because the website isn't perfect yet, I was like, I know my website's crap, but I'm going to go ahead and work anyway. And that's what I did. So,
awesome.
I was able to drive traffic to the website. Eventually, I would find out about podcasts and radio shows by doing a small business roundup show for Brian the Hammer Jackson in February of 2013, and found out that I loved being interviewed, and it was another way I could drive traffic to my website without having to leave the house. I was frustrated that I wasn't able to go to the trade shows for the amusement industry, and doing a radio show I did his show for like 6 months. So Friday morning I'd do 10 or 15 minutes, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday I'm looking at all this traffic coming to my website because I just went out there and shared who I was and what I was up to. And so that's another thing that, a lot of people get sidetracked by trying their website isn't good enough yet. Their podcast isn't good enough yet. How many guys do you know of who still haven't posted their first episode because they think they need one more piece of gear before their audio will be perfect?
Yeah, absolutely.
Me, I embrace the imperfect. I'm not saying that, if you know for sure, if your friends have told you what you're doing is not good, it's junk. I'm not saying to put bad stuff out there, but I am saying that you have to know when good enough is good enough. And I think my blindness actually helps me with knowing when good enough is good enough, but also when other people would be, I'm not going to put that out there. I look horrible. I sound horrible. when other people would do that, I go ahead and list it. We talked about just before we started here that I recently installed a new camera because it turned out the camera angle I was using was looking right at my face and up my nose. And some days they could see nose hair, so I just found out that 5 years worth of video is junk. But have I rushed out to take that video down? No, because I said some good stuff. My guests said some great stuff that people will still listen to, even if they're a little bit distracted by the video. And so that's one of these things that I believe the blindness really helps me in avoiding that whole perfectionism trap, because it just doesn't affect me,
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of gets rid of that whole analysis paralysis that so many people have.
You got to take the action. I mean, like you said, everybody's waiting for that one piece of, that one other piece of gear that's going to make their set look perfect, but they're never taking the action for it. So I commend you for that. Just take the action. That's kind of what it sounds like.
Oh, exactly. Just do what you can do right this minute and try not to worry about the things you can't do. I have a 4-question method that I share with people, and that is, if you can do something, go ahead and do it right now. Don't talk about it or think about it or ask somebody else about it. Just do it. If you can't do it, then can you learn how to do it? And if you think you can learn how to do it, then ask somebody to be your mentor, sign up for the course, download the audio, whatever you have to do to learn it. Go ahead and learn it. If you can't do it and you can't learn it, ask somebody to do it for you. And that may mean hiring somebody, reaching out to friends and family, getting an intern. Because I've been blessed that when I've shared that I had needs, people have come along and they've done things for free or for less than what they would usually charge, or on installments when they didn't usually do installments. So if you can't do it or learn it, can you get somebody to do it for you? If you can't do it, you can't learn it, and you can't get somebody else to do it, then just ignore it. Put it off to the side, focus on the things that you can do something about. And in a month or 3 months or a year, when you come back to it, you'll probably be able to move it to one of those other lists and actually be able to take some action.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's jump into the moments of truth questions.
All righty.
Yeah. So Maxwell, these are just basically 7 questions that we ask everybody, all of our guests here. We did change up one question, but not a huge deal. We figure we can get some better responses here. So I'll kick it off. Maxwell, who is your success role model?
I think the number one success role model would be my dad, who, even though when he died, we had to take a collection for his funeral. There were people who came from all over the state and from many other states because they respected the way he carried himself and the way he did business. And I like to tell people, we never had as many rides as other people did, but we always, whenever we played an event that somebody else had been at, we always gave them more money. And the reason for that is if we told somebody they were going to get 25%, they got 25%. If we told somebody they were going to get half, even if we didn't like it, they got half. And so I try to remember that it's not always how much money you make or how much stuff you got. It's how you treat other people, especially how you treat them when they don't know what you're thinking, or, if they have no way of knowing what your decision was, that those moments are very important. So he would be my most important wealth role model, even though I don't think you'd ever call him wealthy financially.
Awesome. What's your biggest success?
I think my biggest success is just getting up every day and doing the next thing, being willing to take on new opportunities and new challenges, and getting to the point where it's no longer, I can't do that. Or, I've gone from, people would say, Max, have you tried something? I go, no, I can't. I've never done it. To, okay, I've never done it, but I'll try it. To now it's, okay, I could see doing that, but does it fit with who I am and what I want to do next? So I think just becoming more expensive in how I see myself and what I think I'm capable of, to the point it's now deciding, what 2 or 3 or 4 things I want to do most now, as opposed to, telling people I can't do that.
Great.
Maxwell, what's a typical day for you look like? Run us through a day in Maxwell Ivey's life.
Okay. Well, I usually get up and then I have coffee, and then I try not to check my email, but I usually do. Then I usually will ride my stationary bike or the bike that doesn't go anywhere. Then usually I watch Price is Right while I'm doing stuff on the computer. And then it really just depends on what needs to be done. Some days I work on the midway. Some days I work on the podcast or the blog. Some nights I get some writing done. Today I'm being interviewed by you guys, and I have to post my podcast episode for What's Your Excuse. Usually I keep working until Jeopardy comes on, and then I take a break and watch Jeopardy. And then nice. I work again until later. And depending on what day of the week it is, if I have a favorite, if a sports team is playing that I like, or if there's a favorite television program, I will either stop to watch or listen, or I will work through it depending on how interested I am. I try to take some time out every day to read, whether it's personal development, self-help, or just straight fiction. And at some point during the day, you have to eat. I'm a former gastric patient, so I've got a variety of vitamin supplements I take every day. So it's just a combination of work and trying to enjoy myself a little bit, spending some time with the family, trying not to spend all day working, just trying to break it up. My day used to get broke up by my crazy dog, but she's no longer with us. And I actually envy people who are working with their pets because those distractions are valuable. I don't care what that new study says about it taking 20 minutes to get back to what you were doing after you get distracted. But so it's basically, I don't have a set calendar. I'm not a regimented person. I honestly admit that I could do much better as far as daily calendars, blog calendars, scheduling systems, routines. And I will admit that most people that are successful do that more than I do it.
Got it. Well, it sounds like it works for you. So, you just got to figure out what works.
Yeah.
So, well, what's your favorite quote?
Okay. Most of my favorite quotes are either from me or from a family member. So the one that two of them that I'm known for is, if you don't ask, they can't say yes. That comes from my dad. And the other one is that when you refuse to ask, you rob the other person of the joy they would have received from helping you. And that's from me.
Oh, I really like that one. Yeah. Maxwell, go ahead.
I find it really helps people who have a block about asking people, if you can get them to put the focus on the other person and take the focus off of themselves. And because there are literally millions of people out there who have skills, experience, knowledge, who the best thing in their day is when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, I know that you know this stuff. I really need help. Would you help me?"
Awesome. Maxwell, what's one of your hobbies outside of, blogging and doing interviews?
Let's see. Hobby. I don't know that I have a hobby. I like old time radio shows. I like to read.
You should enjoy what you're doing.
I think I need to get a hobby. So if the listeners have some suggestions on some hobbies I can do that work equally well at the house as they do when I'm traveling, I'll be open for some suggestions.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. We'll have them refer some hobbies to you.
Yep.
All right.
Maxwell, what's the best business book that you've read?
The best business book I've read wasn't technically a business book, but it's The Adversity Advantage by Eric Wehamere, who is a blind adventurer who's done all the 7 summits and recently navigated the Colorado River. And for a long time, I had trouble with comparison because people would tell me I was inspirational, and I would tell them, no, that guy's inspirational. But he wrote a book called The Adversity Advantage. And there are so many great lessons in there that can be applied to your business life and that I try to apply.
Awesome.
Hey, Maxwell, last question here. If there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
I would think it would be just to do something every day, to find one concrete action you can take each day. And, on a good day, more than one. When you find something that you're good at, as far as that one concrete thing, do it every day or on a regular basis. And of course, if you're a solo entrepreneur, like a lot of us are, you have to fight the feelings of isolation. So I like to tell people another thing they can do is to get up every day expecting to find one positive experience, occasion, or one great new person to come into their lives. And, you mentioned sayings. I'm also known for saying that you meet the people that you expect to meet. So you have to expect for somebody great to come into your life every day.
Awesome.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, Maxwell, thanks so much for coming on the show. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Right. They can go to theblindblogger.net, theblindblogger.net. They can send me an email at justask@theblindblogger.net. And I'm on most of the social media networks, either as The Blind Blogger or as Maxwell Ivey.
Awesome. Maxwell, thank you. We definitely appreciate it. You've got a pretty inspiring story. No excuses from you on your end here. So that's pretty awesome. For the listeners here, don't forget, follow us on Facebook at the Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. And don't forget to leave a review and subscribe to the show to get the daily podcast here. So again, Maxwell, thanks for joining us today, and everyone have a great day.